I tēnei wā, I kōrero tahi ana au rāua ko Kiley Nepia, who is one of the founders of Hawaiki Kura, which is a modern-day whare Wānanga model that he runs alongside his whānau. They began working with whānau and rangatahi within Te Tau Ihu, but now also share their matauranga and skills with the wider Te Waipounamu. Kiley shares that Hawaiki Kura came out of necessity, but also from their desire to want to showcase te ao Māori. In this episode, Kiley shares how Hawaiki Kura uses their Mātauranga and ngā taonga tuku iho to engage with rangatahi, pakeke, tāne and wāhine to reconnect or strengthen their connections to te ao Māori. Kia ora, I'm Iria Rangi and welcome to Oho Māori. Oho Māori is where I'll be having kōrero with some kick-ass people who were raised urban and their journey to discovering their tuakiri. From stories of disconnection and loss of identity to finding themselves and standing proud in who they are. Come along with me on this journey of awakening the mana and power of standing strong in who you are. Tēnā tātou, nau mai ki tētahi kōrero anō, so welcome back to another kōrero, another podcast. I'm really looking forward to this kōrero today because it's something that I am quite into and quite passionate about it myself, but also the kōrero that's going to happen is going to share a lot of Mātauranga around just so many beautiful things and so I've been following this whānau and their kaupapa for quite some time now, and I just love the mahi they do. So if I can very quickly, what is happening to my screen? If I can get you to introduce yourself, please.
Tēnā tātou, tēnei ka mihi atura kia tātou, e mihi ana ki te araki o te rangi kia Matariki kua puta I tōna rua, ko ia tēnei ko whakiiri ake rā ki te uma o rangi nui e tuihonei. O tira Matariki hunga nui, tēnei te mihi atura ki a koe. O tira ki te kāhui whetū, kua ara mai nei. Hoi anō e mihi ana ki a koe e hine, me te āhuatanga o tō tāua nei noho. Kiley Nepia tōku ingoa, he uri whakahiki tēnei o Kurahaupo waka. Kurahaupo e noho nei ki te Waipounamu, ko Ngāti Kuia, ko Rangitāne, ko Ngāti Apu ki te rā tō tērā. No reira, ko tōku whānau, ko te whānau Nepia. Tōku whare Wānanga, ko te whare Wānanga e ki ana ko Hawaiki Kura no reira. E mihi ana kia tātou, me ngā kōrero ka puta I tēnei o tō tātou Wānanga.
All right. So you mentioned your mahi that you do, which is Hawaiki Kura. If you can give a really quick kōrero or background into what Hawaiki Kura is for those who might not know what it is.
Yeah, so Hawaiki Kura, which I have a tendency to do a little long rave because it means so many different things depending on what the context is, but pretty much Hawaiki Kura is a modern day whare Wānanga model that our whānau has developed out of necessity and out of our desire to want to showcase te ao Māori to our community and to those people that want to learn a little bit more about it. In particular to our rangatahi, our tāne, our wāhine who live here in Te Tau Ihu, the top of the South Island, me Te Waipounamu and to the further South Island, but also to other cultures, non-Māori, who want to learn a little bit about us as well. And so, it's also a business model of ours, a little whānau enterprise that we do. In terms of we deliver wānanga and then we deliver cultural development services for non-Māori organisations and cultural advice for them.
Yeah, because some of the mahi you do, which is, it's something that, so my bigger dream is to start a foundation program where I get to take our urban raised Māori kids back home to their whenua. Yeah. And so it's what I'm sort of building at the moment through my consultancy and through teaching is starting sort of using my Māori Dawida here at my kura to sort of be my role models. And so the mahi you do with sharing your Mātauranga with the next generation, of, especially the maurako and the weaponry and stuff like that, and how you incorporate into your teaching, because that's part of what I want to do is to take them back to their whenua to learn from their kaumātua, their kuia, their tohunga from their iwi, is I think one of the beautiful things that drew me to you and your whānau and what you do for ngai Māori. And so if you could talk a little bit about what your wānanga sort of look like, and I guess not in general, but I know you had one recently. Your Matariki.
Yeah. So our wānanga is, so the wānanga that I came through was quite old school, quite hard, and not saying this in a nasty way, but quite boring. You know, ko te tohunga, ko te tauira, and you sit there and you listen, and you repeat. And that's good for some people, but for some of our rangatahi in particular who didn't grow up, like you were saying before, on a marae setting, that can be a little bit daunting. And so we've been running wānanga for a number of years now. And so we've developed a model that we believe is quite innovative. It uses a whole range of different tikanga Māori to teach and to engage with rangatahi, with pakeke, with tāne and wāhine. And it's a model that there's been a lot of research and a lot of thought into how we deliver our wānanga, even how long we spend on each subject. Like you said, the different things that we teach, like maurako. Like maurako is one of our foundation taonga that we teach. And so our whole kaupapa of our wānanga is to reconnect or strengthen the connection of the tauira to Te Ao Māori. Kia rongo, kia kite rātou i te atāhua me te hōhunutanga o te Māoritanga. And so that they can build this foundation and this relationship with their cultural identity, so that they absolutely know that Te Ao Māori and their Māoritanga is their superpower. Because far too often, and this was certainly the case for me when I went to school, it was the deficit. It wasn't the thing that added value. And for me too, when I was going to school, it was about leaving, or a case of having to leave your cultural identity at the gate before you entered into the school. And so I just didn't want that for our babies. And for a while there, we were trying to work within the kura, but it was just too hard. So then we just worked with our rangatahi outside of schools. It's now got to the point now where the schools are more open with us going in and working with rangatahi, and so we're seeing a huge shift there. But yeah, to go back to that, so we deliver wānanga. We teach different taonga tuku iho, or ancestral gifts, to promote oranga, or holistic well-being. It changes slightly depending on who we are working with, e.g. if we're working with rangatahi or if we're working with tāne or wāhine, but always tū waiwai, Māori foot movement, maurako is a huge part for us, because part of our kaupapa is to decolonize and re-indigenize ourselves. And that takes time and that takes process, and you know, the best place to do that is in either the taiao or on the marae. And we have to teach our people again how to move to be Māori. Discipline is a huge thing that comes through with maurako. Being able to learn again to move as a collective rather than the individual. Again, that's huge for our rangatahi, because they think that the whole world revolves around them. And so to take it back to, you know, the collective rather than your individual needs. And then once we go through that, then we start adding on that, and we start teaching them kariki and all those type of things. Sitting around the whāriki, or even the way that we sit, is quite intentional. And again, a lot of these taonga that we've implementing have been taken from the old whare wānanga, the traditional pre-European whare wānanga. Yeah, and so we just think that it really resonates, and particularly with our rangatahi. We're now delivering a range of wānanga for men and for wāhine, and they are wellness wānanga. And what we're finding, and particularly in this COVID environment, that it's really resonating with a lot of our people. you know, our people were doing it tough before, but they're doing it even tougher now because of the COVID environment. The wānanga that we run for our men, we see that, you know, there's a lot of trauma there for them, intergenerational trauma that's been handed down to them. You know, how does a Māori male express themselves positively in a modern day context? What does it mean to be a Māori man today? You know, and how do we lead our whānau? We've just delivered our first wāhine wānanga, and that was just so moving to watch our wāhine move in that space. And again, our mamas healing themselves, and so we're thankful. We're very thankful to hold the space for our people. It's getting to the point now where our wānanga or our tauira no longer just come from Te Tau Ihu, but they're coming throughout Te Waipounamu and the bottom of the North Island. So we're humbled, and we just keep on trying to develop our capacity.
Yeah, that's, oh man, and that right there is like I said, is why I got drawn to you and your whānau. And just especially coming out of the education system and just finding so many of our Māori students or our Māori tauira, the biggest thing they lack is identity. And for me, I was born and raised in Rotorua, but grew up in Te Teko with my karawa and kuia, and moving here to Tāmaki and becoming a teacher up here, it broke me a lot, especially when having conversations with our Māori students and as little as asking where they're from, and their only answer was either, oh, I'm from up north, or I'm from Tainui, and that's as far as their knowledge went, or their matauranga went with who they were as Māori. And so just everything you and your whānau are doing for our rangatahi, for our whānau in Te Waipounamu is such a beautiful kaupapa, and such a blessing to te iwi Māori, ngai Māori, even up here in the north. And so it's like just everything you and your whānau are doing is what I wish I could be giving to the students here at my school. And so yeah, like with COVID and things, I had organized for some whānau that I have who work in the taiao, and I've got a friend that I've grown up with since primary who is doing his PhD around pest control, but Māori pest control. And so I had organized all of these different people to come in and share their matauranga with my kids, and then term one happens, and with being in red light setting and no one being allowed to come in, it sort of put a massive damper on what I was able to offer the kids, and just taking them out into the taiao, and there was just so many restrictions around what schools could do. And so now I'm at the point where I'm trying to get those people back in and back on board to come in and share their mātauranga with my tauira, and having a wāhine come in and teach Kōrero and puoro, and just to get these, because I teach from 5-year-olds to about 10-year-olds, and just trying to get them to see why our culture is so beautiful. And so I did want to ask, do you see a difference in behavioural issues when you are working with tauira in schools?
Yeah, what we see is a whole lot of transformative change that takes place within the wānanga system. And so there's one wānanga that we hold, which is our holiday one for our rangatahi, and that goes for 6 days. Like that's like the hardcore wānanga. And it goes for 6 days because we believe that it takes that long for the process of decolonization to happen, and the re-indigenizing and all that kind of stuff. And so ka tai mai te rangatahi me tōna whānau. So on day one, the whānau and the rangatahi turn up, and then the whānau don't see them again until the last day, when we pōhiri the whānau back on, and we do a whakāturanga. And as part of this too, so for the 6 days, it's a device-free wānanga. So you could imagine that, you know, on day one, they're all like having withdrawal symptoms and freaking out. And but when we get to the whakāturanga and we pōhiri nani and all the whānau on, like there are just tears flowing, and like Nani is saying, you know, what have you done to my moko? And, you know, it's so great. And the other thing too is that with our wānanga that we run within Kura, we do the same thing. But but this time it's showcasing what they've learned back to the teachers. And we quite often get the teachers saying, oh, well, why are they like that with you and they're not like that with us? Well, you know, ask yourself.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of behavioral change. Like there's a whole ripple effect that goes out to their wider community, to their school, to their iwi. Some of our rangatahi come from the 8 iwi of Te Tau Ihu. Others have chosen to live here, but they come from elsewhere. Others, you know, we're often getting messages from whānau saying, oh, look, we've just been up to a tangi. Our kids knew what to do, or they were able to offer karakia for this and that. And so they were able to, you know, fulfill those different roles. So yeah, we definitely see it. One of the colleges that we're rolling out here, that we're working with at the moment, Marlborough Boys College, which is considered to be a very mainstream school. I've been working with them for maybe 9 months. And last year they did a whittle for the junior boys coming on as part of their induction to the school. It was the first time a whittle had been performed at that school for over 15 years.
Wow.
And these boys now are seen as absolute tuakana and the role model of what it means to be a tauira Māori at that school. 9 months ago, probably half of those boys were ready to exit school because it just, you know, there was nothing happening there for them. So yeah, we are, again, we're very mindful of the impact that we can have. In saying that too, we know that it only lasts as long as they keep coming back to the wānanga. You know, you can't go to one wānanga and think that all your superpowers are all sorted and then, you know, and so it's a lifestyle. What's happening now though is that, for an example, a rangatahi will come to the rangatahi wānanga and dad will see him. And so then dad will sign up to the tāne wānanga and then mum will sign up to the wāhine wānanga. And so they're all at home, starting to lead that lifestyle that and those taonga that and that matauranga Māori that they've learned.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what we're seeing now, is that it's the next generation who are bringing their whole whānau back into te ao Māori. And I one thing with me, and when it comes to teaching and the curriculum and stuff, I hate it. I do not like the curriculum, and obviously for obvious reasons it was not created for us. And so the way I try and teach is I think back to how I was raised by on my marae and just doing a lot of hands-on things, whether it was in the kitchen or whether it was out in the mara. But when I teach, especially our Māori students, we do a lot of hands-on things. We do a lot of waiata, we do a lot of kemu and ngā toi, and just the elements of that make our Māori students or our Māori tauira look back on history and think, okay, so my tupa needs to do this. So and then also part of my other role is to encourage the teachers within our school. So I oversee Te Ao Māori in general within our kura, within our school, and trying to get teachers to think differently as to how they teach, especially our Māori kids. Well, big Polynesian school here, so all our brown tauira, all our brown kids don't learn by sitting there and you just expecting them to take this book and look at it and read and stuff like that. They need hands-on activities. They need to be moving and having conversations and collaborating with other people on what it is they're actually learning. So for me, yeah, again, your mahi is exactly what I see school should be like. And coming through the education system, well, growing up and obviously going through school, and as much as my reo was for me, my superpower, being proud to be Māori was my superpower, I still had to battle racist comments. I still had to battle Pākehā teachers not caring, or teachers not caring in general about what I flourished in compared to what they expected me to do. And so it's a lot of decolonizing, like you've said, decolonizing the brain and decolonizing so that we think Māori and thinking Māori is what is going to cause a lot of change for so many generations to come. And so yes, just oh man, just everything you are doing is what for me, school should look like. And I know...
I totally agree. And like you said, even the 40 minutes, it's a 40-minute period, then they got to move on to the next period and all those type of things. And one of the conversations that we've been having with some of the schools is that there are some things that you can teach within your kura, and then there are other things that just need to be left for the wānanga, but just to provide space for that to happen. And also when they're coming back to school, don't say things like, oh, well, while you're awake, you're wānanga. You're missing out on real school and just stuff like that. And, just don't do that. And so hence the reason why we, if you like, there are two main groups that we work with, our Māori people, and particularly our rangatahi, but also non-Māori, because they are in those positions of power. And so to be able to sit down with them and to be able to articulate and communicate, like you said, what tirohanga Māori or what might resonate for this young Māori boy within your kura, or providing evidence that, when he's in this space, this is, this is him in his fullness, in him expressing his rangatiratanga. I think, the other thing for us too is that we don't have a kura kaupapa, and so for a lot of our rangatahi, this is their option in terms of Māori education. And so it's about just bridging that gap really, and providing as much support and wrap around them. Another point I wanted to pick up on something that you said before is that, like, we actually, around the racism, we actually have to prepare them, because it's inevitable that that's going to happen. But for them to understand and to be courageous, to be able to hold their space when that happens, because I remember the first time that happened to me, and that just rocked my world, and I felt powerless. I just, there was nothing that I could do because of that balance of power. So just to be able to warn them, prepare them, that those type of things, that's still very much a reality out there.
It definitely is. And I think it's going to take many, many more years before that disappears, or not disappears, but before it's become less and less loud. And it's something that I'm teaching my own daughter as well, is because she's, I'm probably the fairest in my family, and so she's a lot darker than I am, and so just teaching her that even her color will affect people. But just watching her grow in the last, how many months are we? In the last 6 months being at her kura now, I've seen this whole new person, and it's because she's now walking in her mana and in her power of what I tried to give her, but she needed someone else to show her. And so for me now, it's just supporting her choices and her journey on whatever huarahi she takes her journey on, and trying to guide her as much as I can, without taking away her own power.
I agree, and that's all right that it's somebody else too. Mama and Papa don't have to lead everything. So, and it's nice for somebody else to be able to input into their development. One of the huge thing that one of the big messages that we are starting to really hone in with our rangatahi is, like we said before, is that your Māoridom is your superpower, and that if you are able to, particularly in that creative space, and there's a lot of opportunities there globally, presenting, digital storytelling, and if you can do that from a kaupapa Māori perspective, then we were at a language symposium about a month ago, and one of the keynote speakers said that Wellington is calling out for those type of people. They need those people that really understand Te Ao Māori and how to be able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess for us as Māori, being creative is something we've always had. It's just who we've always been, and being able to, I guess, let that out in a way that we feel powerful is what will be a beautiful thing if our rangatahi learn that, while still trying to battle with the other realms of what they can't control. But yeah, so I love that little kōrero about Māorism being our superpower, because it so is. And I think out of so many other Indigenous cultures, I think being Māori is probably the most powerful one, because there's so much beauty within who we are, and just and just talking with my friends who are from the islands and things like that, it's the Māori that they look up to. Like it's our Māori people that they sort of not compare themselves, but they sort of see as who they want to be. Much as they are very strong in their own Tongan or Samoan cultures, it's we have some really beautiful kōrero around how they view Māori and the power and the mana that we walk in, and just our ability to hold our heads high, just with everything that has happened, and we still walk with the power. And so it's trying to transfer that into the next generation, and seeing what they come out with and who they become. So yeah, so I love what I do, and I love that I'm making small changes, but also it's been really interesting the last maybe month where I've challenged a lot of teachers here at this school, and I've made them have to rethink what they do, to the point where it pushed them out of their comfort zones. But for me, I'm all for our kids. I'm all for giving our Dawida the best of everything. And so if I'm rubbing someone up the wrong way, it's because I know that they deserve better. And so yeah, that's been I've been doing that a lot lately. So it's been quite interesting the last few weeks. But like I said, I'm all for our kids, and I'm all for giving them everything that they deserve, from the classroom to anything outside of the classroom. And yeah, so just would love to eventually like get down or even just continue to tautoko you in whatever way possible, and your mahi. And I guess on that, what sort of, where do you see Hawaiki Kura, or what are your bigger, or your visions, or your goals, or moimoia for Hawaiki Kura, maybe in the next 10 years?
Yeah, we've got some real huge, a huge moimoia in our Hawaiki ho, because, you know, we continue to look at or think about Hawaii from where we come from. And I think we can also utilize it to think about where we're heading to. You know, what is the new Hawaii? Yeah. What does that look like for us? We want to build our capacity more. We want, like, one of my daughters who's right into manifesting, which is one of the huge things that we teach, you know, mai te kore ki te pō, ki te whai o te ao marama, and how you can manifest things into your reality. One of the things that she said about a year ago is that, you know, she wanted it to get to a point where we were doing Wānanga every week. And it's pretty much at that point now. Like, it's no longer just in the weekends, but it is like, it's you know, every week we have a Wānanga that we're running. So we want to be able to develop our internal capacity so that we can provide this opportunity for as many rangatahi, tāne and wāhine throughout the motu, and particularly here, like, we are getting more tono to move to other, well, not move, but to deliver Wānanga in different areas. We've got a bit of a mission that we want to touch the lives of 10,000 people. Wow. And so that we know that, you know, if we were to do that, then that's a real good critical mass in terms of reconnection to Te Ao Māori and what it means to, you know, lead a kaupapa Māori lifestyle. So yeah, that's our little, you know, and I guess the other thing too is for us is that anything that we can do to help anybody establish their own wānanga. Like, I really believe that the re-establishment of iwi marae community-based whare wānanga is really where it's at, because there's nothing that is that can is more powerful than that. Yeah. And so, you know, to be able to really establish those type of wānanga and see them popping up throughout Aotearoa. And not to say that, we're the only ones out there doing that. That's no means the case. Nor is what we're doing anything much different than what any other people, other people are doing and other communities are doing. We don't confess to be tohunga or mātanga or anything like that, but the little bit that we have, then we're able to share it. And I think because we're doing it as a whānau, then you get the sense of, that we're able to help others, again, look at the beauty of Te Ao Māori and strengthen their connection. But yeah, if I was to go back again and just, we're so humbled and so mindful of the space that we have to hold and create, and we don't take it lightly. And sometimes our whānau have been so disconnected from this process of wānanga, of indigenizing themselves, that sometimes so we often go around in a circle and just check in with people, and something just triggers someone off. And next minute they've had something's come back to them, an experience, or they're thinking about their people and their nannies, or the trials and tribulations, and then they just start to tangi, or that they've just realized, or there's just been a bit of an awakening happening within them. And so if we're playing a small part in that, then we're stoked with that.
And I think and you touched on a really massive point, is that there's so much trauma that has happened generationally, and so even if we don't know that it's there, it's going to come out eventually. And it's that, and it's allowing it to come out and then letting it go and moving forward. That's, I think, sometimes we forget we've got to do. And if but that's amazing that you get so many people in that get to that point and get to that realization that they're not just letting go of mamai for themselves. They're now realigning and bringing back into being however many generations before them that it was actually affecting, whether it was 10, 15 generations ago, and that it's just come down through to them, and so now they're the ones who are breaking that cycle, I guess, if you put it that way. And
I also think too that it's really important, and we talk about this often within the Wānanga space, that it's not all about trauma, and it's not all about heaviness, and because we have some real fun in the Wānanga space as well. And so, as well as our intergenerational trauma, there's our intergenerational beauty, and our superpowers, and all that stuff that has been handed down. And one of our whakatauki that we absolutely live by is he kākono koe iruia mai rangiatea, so that our rangatahi in particular absolutely believe that they are a seed born of greatness. Now, when you start saying to some of our rangatahi, they're just like, oh man, that's weird, and then they start to understand, and you start to unpack it, and you say, you talk to them that, he atua koe, the gods reside within you, and you come from araki, and you come from rangatira, and this whole concept of the tuku ihotanga, or the handing down and the passing down of that sacred seed, to ensure its survival, and not just that it's surviving, but it's thriving. And for a lot of our whānau, they really are just surviving. And so within that wānanga, when you help to crack that seed open, and they start to thrive and really understand on what that means, and that the blueprint's already, you go into our whare nui, you go into our marae, and those methodologies, whether that's whakatauki, or whether it's the popo, or whether it's the maurako, that blueprint is there. And we believe that when you interact with taonga tuku iho, they send out a vibration to your tupuna. When you call your tupuna, that they must come forward. And so it's, and then that's where you get your superpowers from. And I think that's where you're sort of going and helping go back upwards. So starting with our rangatahi, and then working through into the parents, and then even into the kaua kuia, and which
would have been beautiful if we had the opportunity to go the other way, which it should have been, and we sit down from our karawa kuia to our rangatahi. But just that in itself is such a beautiful kaupapa and a beautiful mahi that you're doing, and I guarantee there are so many people who are grateful for you and your whānau for everything you're doing, and the changes, or not the changes, the enlightenment you're bringing to their whānau. And do you, and I guess, do you do whānau Wānanga, or are they all separate?
Yeah, no, we do whānau Wānanga, and then we do Wānanga for different schools, and then we do Wānanga under the, if you like, under the Hawaiki Kura, which is open just to the wider community. So yeah, we have a number of whānau that we work on one-on-one with. And I think in that, within your ope taua, within your crew that you're working with, there's going to be the hardcores.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be, some that might only come once, and then they're like, oh, no, man, that ain't for me. But normally, so for some of our whānau that we've been working with for a while, we've started working with them just directly with their whānau as well.
That's cool. Have you seen that because of what they learn or what they go through with you, that other areas of their old changes as well?
Yeah. So it has a huge ripple effect into education, how they communicate together as the whānau, their religious beliefs, which is a real huge one for them. I unashamedly talk about the whakapapa that we talk to is atua Māori. Not to say that any other religion is not worthy, but just for what we talk about, because everything in Te Ao Māori has a whakapapa, and I can connect that back to Te Atua, to Te Whare Atua, and so sometimes that's what can happen as well, or even just those questions are being had within themselves, even sometimes going back to their marae and seeing things, why are we doing it like this, or those type of things. But like you said, just enlightenment, but it's also to remind them that never ever to go and say, oh well, Papa K said this is how this is how we roll it out. No, you just sit there and you just observe, and then you just have a think about that by yourself.
And I just thought about something that sort of links to what you said just a little while ago, but I remember listening or watching something, and it was, I think it might have been another podcast, and he was just talking about how he didn't learn to speak Te Reo Māori, he just awoke in it, because as Māori, it's always in us. It's just it needs to be woken up because of whatever has happened or caused you to not speak Te Reo Māori. And so, that was just something that I just thought about in regards to what you said just a little while ago, which I think is such a beautiful way to put it, because it's not a learning of something, it's an awakening of who you are and your wairua. Yes. So,
and it goes back to that point before that we're talking about in terms of resonating. We do taonga tuku iho, whether that's rāranga, that there's something just it resonates and it awakens something within you. Now, of course, you have to sit down and learn, your kupu hau and all that kind of stuff. But all of those things, they are impacted within they sit there within our DNA. And when we're in these spaces, like there's a whole lot of clearing that takes place, and that you become more conducive. Even just the way that the whole Wānanga system, it's built for us. Whether that's on the marae or within the taiao. We had one person, a lady that attended our last Wānanga, and wāhine kōrero Māori te wāhine nei, and she was a Māori speaker, but hadn't spoken for a while and hadn't been in a kaupapa Māori space for a while, and she was just saying, I just feel so good about myself, and it's just reawakened a whole lot of passions that I have, and again, my creativity tōku reo Māori, tōna tirohanga Māori and all those type of things. And yeah, so that's the power of wānanga.
Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. And just to touch on what you sort of said about religion, and just, I've sort of talked about this in a few podcasts, but for me, I was raised Christian, but just with being brought up with my kuia and karawa, and there's always something in me that felt like that's not what I needed. And so it's been in the last maybe 2 or 3 years where I've just allowed my wairua to find who it is in te ao Māori. And I think it's been the most enlightened that I've been, even being going to church and stuff, and being, I guess, connected to God. But it wasn't until I allowed myself to be who I was meant to be, and to follow what I was meant to follow. It's been, especially in the last year, where it's like this whole new world has opened up, because that's who I'm meant to be. And so it's been quite interesting when I introduced some karakia here into our kura, and I changed what they used to use, and just having some kickback from some teachers who have their own faith, and they're Christians and stuff like that. And so they sort of come back saying that, oh, we liked the old prayers because they acknowledge God. And for me, I felt uncomfortable that we were forcing our kids who had multiple, like, obviously in a school like this, you have our Middle Eastern kids, and you have Catholics, and you have all these different religions. And so for me, I didn't believe that they should have been forced to pray to one specific person. Whereas in te ao Māori, when we pray to our atua, and we're doing karakia to our atua, it's a way of guiding us through whatever area of our day we need some guidance through. And so yeah, for me, it took a lot of standing up for what I thought was right for not just our kids, but also coming back to those teachings and saying, okay, so you want our Muslim kids, you want these sorts of kids to pray to your God, but you're not willing to be open to acknowledging what ways of I guess incorporating all atua, whether that's Māori, whether that's our whatever atua there is. And so yeah, so it's been quite a journey, just sharing my wairua with people, and especially with the lineage that I descend from, and my karawa, so my kuia, who I'm named after, and her lineage being the matakete for our whānau, and having that power and that mana. And so yeah, so I think for me, having Christianity blocking what was meant to have been was a huge reason why I struggled a lot through life, because I was sort of not allowing what I should have been letting free. And yes, so sort of off on the side little notes, but yeah, just something I thought it's just been such a beautiful journey now when I share with my little 5-6-year-olds even about like just talking to them about Matariki and sharing how Tāwhiri was so angry with his brothers, and it just happened that day it started pouring down with rain and lightning and stuff like that. And so it was just like, okay, so this is, and just explaining to them like that Tāwhiri is reminding his brothers that he's still around and that he's angry with them still. And so whenever we get our heavy rains and whenever we get lightning and stuff like that, that's Tāwhiri just sending that little reminder to his brothers that I'm still here and I'm going to keep reminding you in these little ways. And just seeing how amazed and the looks on the kids' faces, and just how beautiful they find it. And I remember last year with some of my Dawida, I went to send them off and it started pouring down with rain, and they were like, oh no, Tāwhiri's not happy and he's really angry right now, and we're just going to stand here and we'll just wait until he settles down a little bit. And even one of the kids started doing a karakia
And then it started clearing up and they were like, oh man, thank you for, and they just started thanking him for settling down. And but just those little beautiful moments is something that I always love. And I just love seeing and love witnessing, because that was just allowing those kids to freely be who they were. But so many things that we could have a kōrero on, and that I'd love to pick your brain about, but I know time's getting on for you, and I just such a beautiful kaupapa that you and your whānau do, and I know I've said that a lot, but if there was any kōrero you wanted to give to the next generation, or for anyone who's on their journey of not finding who they are, on their journey of enlightening or reopening their ao back to who they are truly meant to be, what would be some words of encouragement from you?
Yeah, so I'm just quickly picking up on your kōrero around pūrākau. So our two little babies are probably our ones that really, that's become a normal part of their worldview, and how they perceive, like you said, when it's raining and those type of things, and they're always talking about rangi nui and papa tuānuku, and also, you know, the revitalization of Matariki. You know, Matariki is going to be a normal part of their worldview. It wasn't mine, you know, we probably 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago was when we done our first Matariki celebration. And by the way, you know, how beautiful has that been this weekend, you know, seeing all the Matariki celebrations, and really, you know, such a big fan of Rangi Mātāmoa and everybody out there, you know, and all the mahi they're doing in terms of the maramataka, but, you know, and how they're ensuring that it's Māori-led for the whole Aotearoa, you know, our first Indigenous public holiday. And so that's, you know, I just thought that, you know, it'll be wrong of us, you know, this kōrero I tēnei wā o te Matariki, and, you know, and just, you know, and even the new but not new, but the you know, the kōrero around the different stars, and you know, the hautapu and the umu kohu that are happening around the motu as well, you know, which is been really awesome. Hoi anō, my advice to anybody would just be to start. You know, you'll have, and sometimes we can have that within our whānau, and other times that might not be so. And so we need to be okay with it not being the version of the journey we thought it was going to be, if that makes sense. The other thing too is that, you know, it's going to be hard sometimes, but so if you can, find the auntie within your whānau, or, you know, it might even be your nana or your someone to help you. It could be a kaiako, you know, and sometimes these things just happen, and you meet what seems to be a random, and next minute, you know, they help to connect you on your journey, and then from there it happens. But yeah, it's just to start, and just to and not to be in a hurry for it to happen as well. You know, this whole process of learning Te Ao Māori, and again, I you know, I know that it's been over social media a lot, but it's also, you know, you're not more Māori because you can speak Te Reo Māori. You know, the only ingredient that you need to be Māori is whakapapa Māori. But in saying that, once you're comfortable in that space, and to go on to your journey of speaking Te Reo, and, you know, finding all those, you know, are you a weaver, are you a carver, are you a whai kōrero, are you a kouta person? Because when you reconnect, you'll just, you'll feel that your superpowers charging up.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit, so I was talking to one of my friends, and she said that when she felt within her that it was time for her to learn who she was as Māori, and to learn to speak Te Reo and stuff, she went through this whole, like, she went through different stages. So one was she was really angry and she wanted everything now and everything needs to come to her now and she needs to go home and all of this sort of stuff. And then she got through that stage and she was a little bit more thorough, and she realized that it's not going to happen overnight. And so she had to live, like, just take it at the pace that she was going into at that time. And when now she knows that she's got to move back from Australia back to Aotearoa to reconnect properly back to her whenua. So yeah, it's definitely a journey that's and it's one of those journeys that it's a forever thing that we are always going to be learning, and we're always going to learn something new from someone, like you said, might be a random who teaches us something that we didn't know ourselves, or so yeah, I just thought I'd share that little kōrero. And yeah, starting is definitely what needs to happen. And just one last part though is, what do you want others to think when they hear the name Hawaiki Kura?
Ooh, patai pai tērā. You know, just a whānau in our neck of the woods trying to have a positive impact on our people and our community, and just wanting to, you know, uplift Te Ao Māori just a little bit more, and just in awe of you know, those people that are out there on a national stage and, you know, going hearty. And, you know, again, if we could contribute a little piece of wood to the fire, then yeah, kua ea te wāhanga kia mātou.
Ka wai. O te rangatira te kai arahi, anei aku mihi nui kia koe, anei aku mihi maioha. I runga i tēnei kaupapa o te arahi i a tātou te iwi Māori. I runga i tēnei huarahi, i runga i tēnei haerenga, hei kimi i tō mātou tuakiri. Te atahuatanga o tō mahi me tō whānau, hei awhi i tō iwi, hei awhi i Te Waipounamu katoa, kia kimi ko wai rātou me te huaki te huakina i tā rātou karu, i tō rātou manawa ki tā rātou tuakiri Māori. Just such a beautiful, and I've said it so much tonight, but just your kaupapa, your mahi, your whānau, and everything that you do and you give back to te iwi Māori is one of the beautiful reasons why being Māori is such an amazing thing. It's not just about our waha, it's our tinana as well. It's our manawa. It's just being Māori. It's who we are. It's everything that our tupuna did for us to get to where we are today, and passing down the knowledge and done through generations, but also reconnecting our whānau who, like I said, might be going up the other way and using our rangatahi to help the rest of their whānau, their nannies, their koro, their aunties, uncles, through your mahi and through your kaupapa of Wānanga, and using ngā taonga tuku iho, hei awhi i a rātou, i a mātou. It's just so beautiful to know that there are so many people out there who are giving back and who wants to see our people flourish and being who they are truly meant to be. And using your matauranga and using the example of your whānau to show other whānau of what and who they can be. E koringa kupu e tae te kōrero mō te atahuatanga o tō whānau, just absolutely blown away by everything that you do. And like I said, it is definitely something that I look forward to being able to share with our urban raised Māori, as well as being able to take them home to their whenua and do what you do back on your whenua for so many rangatahi here, and especially here in Tāmaki, who are just so far from not just from being home, not just from being on their tūranga waiwai, but so far from being able to find and truly walk in who they are, just with all the distractions, but also the battles that they face here within school, and then battles that they face out in the bigger world. And so, yeah, just so many things I could say, just being in awe of all that you and your whānau do, and the fact that everything you do is to give back to out to your iwi and to your whānau, and it's definitely something. I think what makes it even beautiful about you is that it's your whānau that are working together, which is what we are used to doing. For us as Māori, we work as a pā, we work as a whānau, and it's that whānau connection that I think it makes you stand out to me way more than other kaupapa, because you are using your generations to share with the next generation and future generations of who is yet to come through your kura and your space. And so again, mai ahau ki a koe, mai ahau ki tō whānau, nei rā aku mihi nui, nei rā aku mihi mauha, nei rā aku mihi aroha, i runga i tō kaupapa, i runga i tēnei mahi, hei tipu i te ao Māori, hei for planting that seed in so many beautiful souls. That there's just so much beauty that is going to come from your mahi, and being able to leave that legacy for your generations to come. Yeah, just again, thank you. Yeah, ka nui te aroha, ka nui te mihi ki a koutou i tēnei wā.
Kia ora. Well, me pehe te whakahoki kōrero ki tērā. No mātou ki te whiwhi, te honono nui ki te whakawhiti kōrero i tēnei wā o Matariki, te wā e tika ana kia Wānanga te tangata. No reire, mihi ana ki a koe mi tō kaupapa whakahirehire nei, tēnei whakāturanga. Ko mātou tēnei te whānau o Hawaiki Kura e mihi ana. Kia koutou whakarongo mai ana ki tēnei kaupapa. Kia tau mai rā ko ngā manaakitanga ki runga ki tēnā tātou. Kia rangatira anō te tū o ngai tātou te iwi Māori, roto anu i ngā horopaki katoa te ao. Tāne mai, wāhine mai, rangatahi mai, iwi mai, whānau mai. E tika tau kia hoki anō tātou ki ngā mahi o te pā. Hei oranga mo tātou no reira. Tēnei mātou e mihi ana ki a koe e hine, o tira koutou ko tō whānau.
Ngā mihi nui.